And here am I, being absolutely miserable, denying myself all of the fun and joys of the fullness of my life, my physicality, my masculinity, my sexuality, because I think I want to keep everyone else happy, and at the same time just making myself miserable.
Join the journey, stay for a while.
Hey there, beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining me in another episode of KohPhanCast. Let's get into it. Just 1 second before, please, for this guy, subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment what you thought about the story. This week I have something special for you. This week I have my good friend Tony. Tony has an amazing story, amazing life story about discovering thyself at 50 years old, dealing with self-acceptance, dealing with denying who you truly are for most of your childhood, getting raised in a Catholic environment when you're gay must be kind of hard. But it didn't stop him from becoming one of the most positive, humble, amazing people I know here on the island. I won't speak too much. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the episode. And we're on. How are you, Mr. Tony?
Good.
All good?
Good, thank you. Yeah.
It's great to having you here. I usually start this by complimenting my guests, and like for the kind of short period that I know you, like I've been seeing a guy who is super disciplined. You have humble eyes, like you don't really show off or anything, which I know you do have some things to show off about. You're none of that, you're always, you're super likable, you're always smiling, you always have something positive to say, and I really appreciate you, man. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? Give us some background.
Sure. Thanks for the compliment. That's always a nice thing to hear as well. And for the opportunity to share a bit of my story. I think everyone's got a story to tell, and I love hearing other people's stories, and it's nice to be able to share some of mine as well. So, I don't know, where do you want to begin?
From the first thing you sent me was your blog, which I saw your incredible physical transformation.
Yeah.
That as a person that also I'm gonna put now the pictures of yours and mine.
Yeah.
And when you are doing this kind of brave physical step, it always comes with some mental clarity, with some emotional matureness. Guide us through this process of yours.
Well, we can probably start right back at the beginning, really, because I suppose that's that's where it all begins, isn't it? Those early experiences that we have as children, they're foundational to how we see and understand ourselves, and the way it's when those patterns of behavior are laid down that really form the foundation of identity and self, and how we understand our place in the world around us. So I grew up on a little farm in the southwest corner of Western Australia. So the capital of Western Australia is Perth. We were 4 hours drive south of Perth, just in the sticks, in the middle of nowhere, really little community. My family had been farmers there for generations, so 5 or 6 generations before we came along. They were immigrants from they were economic refugees from Germany back in the 1850s. They fled and came to Western Australia. But mum and dad, the gorgeous people, 2 younger brothers that I sort of fought with a little bit as growing up, but they're beautiful men that are really significant guys in my life now. So I grew up on the farm, and I was a bit of a skinny, ginger-headed, gangly-legged kind of misfit that, I never really felt that I kind of knew my place. felt on the margins. I knew I liked boys. I knew I was gay, but I grew up in a culture that I knew that just wasn't possible to even consider, never alone speak about. So my family had been involved in a Christian church there for generations, and that was the culture that I grew up in. And so I grew up not really being able to be honest with anyone, including myself, about who I really was. And so, I think that there were elements of that were really negative, which we can talk about later down the track. But one of the things that was really positive about that was that, I knew I grew up knowing what it was like to be on the margins, to feel out of place. And I think that brings with it a sense of humility and empathy. So that was kind of one of the foundational sort of patterns, I suppose, for me. So that's where the story began, and it kind of just continues on from there. Do you want to redirect, clarify?
100%. When you speak like as a child that wasn't really, when you say you always knew you were gay, but you grew up inside a culture and a system that is not allowing you to, at the base of it, be yourself. That create a dissonance for sure between you and yourself. But as it goes, you're always also learning how to, you being able to understand yourself from such a young age, is also amazing. You being able to, doesn't matter what everyone else think. Yeah, as a little kid, it's more like difficult to just be yourself.
Yeah. But
the understanding that you are what you are and it is already a stone for a person, and that's admirable. And like I don't want to skip parts of your story, but it's interesting to me, like on thinking back, do you see some of the things that your parents and the system taught you as a young boy that helped you, like not as you're getting blocked from being yourself? Did you also learn something positive from it?
Absolutely, because as much as I believed my family wouldn't accept me for who I was, in hindsight now I look back and I never gave them the opportunity to even consider that, because I was scared. I heard my dad say horrible things about what should happen to gays. I grew up in a church where it was taught that if you were gay you were going to hell. That was it. And as a child, the concept of heaven and hell, it's a real thing. And so there's this. So there was that stuff. But what I did receive growing up, and I'm super grateful, to my folks and to my family and to that community, that Christian community that I grew up in, is that I grew up in a really loving community. Despite the fact that I had that dissonance in myself in terms of who I was and learning how to accept myself, I was accepted by that community as a young child, and I was supported and I was nurtured and I was equipped with a whole lot of skills in terms of music and public speaking and being in front of groups of people and organising events and stuff that I went on to do amazing stuff. Like I one day when I was in my 20s, so skipping forward a little bit, but I was walking down the beach in the south of WA, and I just had this idea of like a Christian music festival, sort of. So there's this culture in Australia where everyone finishes high school, and maybe in other places around the world as well. But you finish high school and then you go on this drunken sort of bender week of partying and craziness, and let your hair down. It's called schoolies, and I just thought we could organise a an alternative to that, you know, a drug-free, alcohol-free, really good quality music, but use Christian musicians, because there was lots of young Christian musicians who wanted to perform, but they didn't have, you know, they didn't want to play in pubs, and so
Yeah.
was kind of pulling some things together, and so. You know, so we did that, and in the space of, you know, 7 years, that went from 3 bands playing on the back of a truck in a paddock in Copenhagen, where we grew up, to like, I don't know, I think the pinnacle of it, we had like, the population of the town was 1,500 people. We ended up with 3,000 people coming to the event.
Nice.
So double the population of double the population of the town.
Must
you
be
know,
good business for the town.
Yeah, 3 stages, musicians from all over Australia. So that kind of stuff, you know, that was nurtured and cultivated as part of that community, and that helped me professionally and in terms of you know, self-motivation and drive and that kind of stuff, you know, so certainly got lots out of that. But, you know, I think the biggest thing that I reflect back on is that I did feel, and it seems counterintuitive to say, but, you know, I did feel loved, I did feel nurtured, and look, I think if I had my time again, and perhaps, you know, if there's a little Tony somewhere around the place that's listening to this, you know, that's 10 or 12 and thinking, yeah, this sounds a little bit like me, you know, to just be who you are, give it a crack. And look, it might be tricky, but I reckon people will still love you.
100.
And if they don't, well, that's their shit, not yours.
That's a good thing about this period, you know, like this age, it's so much more acceptable,
Yeah.
and people can feel much more comfortable just being themselves,
Yeah.
because this whole mental health acknowledgement that is happening these years right now, it's simply amazing. You know, people can actually be themselves, like, and it's super interesting that you said that, like, it was not them that didn't accept you, you know. You heard your father speaks about what, a gay this or gay that, but at what age did you tell them?
So that's a long way forward. I was... Can we put a pin in that and come back to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's quite...
What was interesting to me was the fact that, like, you were saying, okay, you didn't give them the opportunity to accept you, you know, which is also, like, I remember me as a small child, you know, like, I always, like, I've been overweight my entire life, and I'm not comparing this, but in my head, I was always the overweight kid. And even when I looked at photos, like, years later, and I'm looking at myself and I'm like, oh, I'm not that fat.
Yeah.
I wasn't that fat, you know? So it wasn't what people thought about me or what I thought about myself. It was what I thought that other people are thinking about me. And that was the image I brought inside my head.
Yeah.
So the moment you are telling me, like, you're not telling your parents who you really are inside, and you are creating this mental image of yourself inside yourself, but basing it on them.
Yeah. And I think, you know, looking back now, you know, I was projecting my own feelings of insecurity and internalized homophobia onto other people. I look back at that now as an adult, and I can rationalize that. But, you know, at the time, it was just...
It was just what it is.
It was what it was. And it was, you know, it was a scary place. I remember... Our farm, how I was in a valley, and you know, the farmhouse and sheds were down in the bottom of the valley, and up on top of one of the hills there was a big dam that collected water for the house. So it was called the house dam, and I used to walk up that hill, up onto that dam bank, and I can just remember still so clearly, so many times walking up there, sitting on that dam bank, and just tears streaming down my face, and just pleading with God to change me and make me the same as everyone else. You know, I just this sense of desperation to be, you know, like
normal.
Yeah, to be normal. Yeah. And yeah, so I really felt, I think, because I couldn't accept who I was, it made it really difficult for me to to think that other people would accept me. So I didn't really have many friends, growing up as a kid, and I think it kind of it made it difficult to really build connections with people, because there was this constant sense of fear that if I got found out, the game was going to be up. And so I became very, very, very skilled, very well equipped at putting on an act. I just had this mask that I wore constantly. I became a great actor, because I left there. I went to university in Perth. I studied. I went and taught out in a remote community out in the centre of Australia, near a place called Uluru, the big rock in the middle of Australia. That was our closest pub, so that was a 6-hour drive to get to the rock if we wanted to have a drink on the weekend, because we weren't allowed alcohol in the community where we lived. But one of the significant things about that part of my life, so I'd been, I'd moved away from the village, the town where I'd lived. I'd gone to university, very, kind of low key. I wasn't into parties. I didn't go out. I had a few friends, few connections, but I just kind of studied and got on with it. And in the communities out there at that time, there was a degree of a perception of kind of safety issues for people living there. So I'll try and explain. It's a bit of a tricky one, because the whole
one step at a time.
There's some real complexities in Australian culture around the way that we see the First Nations people, and there's the degree of social deprivation and social poverty that makes life really difficult for Indigenous people in Australia. And there's a whole lot of colonialism and cultural appropriation and a lot of stuff there. But anyway, we as white school teachers living in that community, we lived in a gated compound, because the perception was that it was not safe for us to live in the broader community. And there was myself and another male teacher and 2 female teachers. We were all in our early 20s, and that was really significant for me, because for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of belonging. Mm-hmm. And I still am not sure now even what made that feel so different. But I think it was because we were all in a situation where we were all on the margins, because we were outsiders in that broader community. And so we kind of just banded together as this little gang. And I used to sort of go out and work in other communities. So I'd be away for a week and come back. And every time I came back, the 3 mates that I shared the house with there, they were just like, Tony, I'm so glad you've come back. We've missed you so much. We've got so many stories to tell. Let's go out camping for the weekend. And so I really felt this, again, like I said, for the first time in my life, this real sense of belonging and being part of
a family you chose.
Yeah. I think it was Armistead Maupin that talked about the concept of having a biological family that you're born into, and then the logical family that you choose to connect with. And I think that was my first experience of the logical family. There were people that we had chosen each other to make a commitment to support each other, and to enjoy living life together. So so that was a really significant step in that journey towards self-acceptance, I think.
And to those people you told about?
No, I didn't. Nah, still didn't. And they were the first. I was in my 20s, and that was the first time that I'd really ever, drunk an alcohol. It was certainly the first time I'd ever used cannabis or anything like that. So they were fun times, but I kind of, I got to a point after a year or so where I thought it was quite isolated, and so career-wise, I needed to go off and do other things, and so I did that. So one of the little sort of sidebars of this, I suppose, is that I ended up choosing to work in a profession and a part of an industry where it was kind of tricky to even be open about being gay. So I ended up working as a school chaplain, which is like a Christian youth worker in a school, and then going on to be the deputy head of a Christian school as well, all the while being in the closet.
Yeah.
And the laws in Australia are such that if I was open, still now, if I was open about who I was, then those employers legally could have fired me on the spot.
Which is a bit crazy, but...
And crazy that I would choose to work, to work in that space. But I think it was, it was kind of part of that act of just kind of things just rolling along. And it felt, well, it didn't necessarily feel safe. It just felt like I didn't really have another choice. I think, again, I kind of convinced myself that I didn't have that choice. Yeah, just keep on going. It'll all be all right. So after having done that for 25 years, I suppose it was, all up. So a fair while.
It was a fair share of time over there, huh?
Yeah. So I was 46, it must have been. Yeah. And I just thought, this, I'd been doing that deputy principal's job for 10 years, and I was sick of, telling kids to tuck their shirts in and do their ties up, and same thing. But it was a great job. It was easy and good money, and there was lots of reasons why I should have stayed in the job. But for some reason, I just thought, no, I've had enough of this. I need to go and do something else.
Yeah.
I look back now and I can see that internally there was some wheels of change that were starting to turn for me, and even though I didn't know that, because ostensibly I said, look, I'm just going to go and travel around Europe for 12 months and come back, but I sold everything that I owned,
so there was no really where to go back. Like inside of yourself, you already told yourself, like, I ain't going back.
Yeah. And so at this point, I'm still in the closet. I'd never been in a relationship. I'd never had sex with anyone. I'd never.
46?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'd never
saving yourself for marriage.
Exactly, because that's the only way you can do it.
Boys
and
the Bible
girls says. Ridiculous, but that's what that's where my thinking was culturally. It was such a strong narrative.
It was implemented in you from childhood. So
yeah. So I packed up, went off traveling, was offered work in the UK, ended up settling in the UK for a few years, and so I'd turned 49, and later that year I was traveling around Europe again, Italy, Greece, ended up in Turkey. So this is about the September of that year. And I had this really good mate back in Perth. He was like a mentor. He was a really significant guy in my life. He was a community development worker. He'd lived and worked in Kabul in Afghanistan with his wife, many years, and he was a Christian leader in that community. I don't know. He just he was a really significant role model in terms of how to live authentically, how to live really. And I got a message from Tom's wife, her name's Lynn, on the Monday of that week to say that Tom wasn't well and had gone into hospital. And then on the Tuesday got a message to say that he was in ICU, intensive care, but was stable. And then Wednesday lunchtime, just as the call to prayer was going out, I got a message from Lynn saying that Tom had passed away. And he wasn't that, he was only 10 years older than me. And that was the epiphanal moment that I think, we're all very aware of our mortality.
Yeah.
But for me, that moment, it was like a switch flicked. And I just thought, this is crazy.
This is going to end very soon.
It could.
Yeah.
And here am I, being absolutely fucking miserable, denying myself all of the fun and joys of the fullness of my life, my physicality, my masculinity, my sexuality, because I think I want to keep everyone else happy. And at the same time, just making myself miserable. And I still look back at it now and I think it was a miracle, because there'd been plenty of other opportunities for me to shift my thinking, but it took Tom's death. And if I do ever get to see him, if there is an afterlife and we end up in the same place, I'm going to wrap my arms around him and just say thank you so much, because
he freed you.
He did. Yeah his death was an amazing blessing for me, which I think he would smile about.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it out.
He would. Yeah, so I just thought, wow, this is crazy. I don't want to live like this anymore.
Absolutely. The pleaser mentality, which I dealt with for a lot of years of my life, you're just trying that everything will be okay around you, that everyone will be happy, that everyone will smile, while actively knowing consciously or subconsciously that you're digging your own hole every day and every step of the way, just to make the surrounding better, nicer, and when you look at the different approach of okay, if I'm going to take care of myself first, then I'm going to be a better version of myself for my other significant people, and then they are going to be even more happy for me because I'm there for myself, so I can give them this energy.
Yeah.
But we chose to say, not them first.
Yeah.
That's I can relate. I can relate.
And again, I think, for me, as I look back now, that goes back to those patterns that were laid down as a child, that I felt the only way I could be accepted was by pleasing other people, was keeping other people happy. And so that narrative, that pattern of behavior, just laid down layer after layer after layer. But so that was when the fun really began, which is kind of bad timing, because that was the November of that year, and then February, March, then January, we started hearing about this weird virus that was, happening around the world. And then February came along and we were told, everyone's staying home. And so here's me getting ready to sort of burst out of the closet and go, here I am. And the universe says, nah, you're gonna stay at home.
Give it another year, bro. Just
what? No! I've waited so long. But there were some funny moments in amongst all of that. So one of the things, so this is coming sort of back to the change in physicality, and one of the things that I kind of grew up with as well was a real difficulty in accepting my body and feeling comfortable in
Yeah.
that. And I think that was part of that psychological sort of self, inability to accept self in any of its versions. And so I'd always had this kind of desire to, be a bit, a bit leaner, a bit fitter, a bit healthier, whatever. But, lived a very sedentary lifestyle and didn't really want to put the effort in. But there's nothing like sex as a bit of an incentive to turn things around.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So the only thing I knew about gayness was Grindr. And I don't even know why I knew about that. I think I probably had to search, gay apps or something. I'm pretty sure. So I downloaded Grindr, and at this point I was, I had a big gut. I was flabby. I was, I wasn't the best looking bloke around by any stretch of the imagination. And what I discovered is that the gays on Grindr are quite ready to give you their critique on your look.
They're going to be honest. They're going to give you what you're up for.
That's right. It is quite literally a meat market. It was such an eye-opener. I was like, holy moly.
Eye-opening experience.
If this is what gays are like, what a bunch of vain, horrible bastards. I don't want to have anything to do with them. But what, and quite quickly discovered that there wasn't really anyone that wanted to have sex with an old, bald, fat guy. But I did discover that there was a bit of a niche market for a fit, bald daddy. And so I thought, okay, well, that's, play to my strengths. And COVID had come along by that point as well, so there wasn't really much else to do. And again, it was kind of an alignment of the stars, because one of the things I found really difficult about COVID, because I'd had this epiphanal moment, I was ready to get out and go, but then I was locked down and I was on the other side of the world to anyone that really knew me or cared about me anyway. And so I was sitting in this flat in a little village in Essex, and by myself, and I ended up getting to a point where I couldn't watch the news anymore because I just found it so overwhelming and horrendous. And I know I wasn't alone in that. And then one of the real shifts was I had a wall clock, and I remember sitting there one night and listening to the sound of this clock ticking, and it was like a metronome of doom. And I just thought, I can't do this. I can't sit here. I've got a beach out there. I'm just going to go walking. I'm going to walk and listen to podcasts, actually. And so I started walking up and down the beach, and that got me moving. And then, like I said, there wasn't really much else to do. And I'd always been, every summer I'd kind of run a little bit. So I started, running, and did the couch to 5K, which is a bit of a thing in the UK, and got that under my belt, and just started feeling the weight drop off a little bit. So there was time and space for that to happen. There was an incentive for that to happen. And there was also that shift in my mentality about self-acceptance and who I was and who I wanted to be, that kind of brought all of that stuff together at the one time. So I kind of went into this almost chrysalis phase over COVID where people sort of, knew me as one sort of version of myself, and then came out the other side as this svelte, fit, lean kind of, guy that was running. At one point I was running like 120 kilometers a week. A normal run was 20 Ks. And yeah, so on the eve of my 50th birthday, I started running in the January, having not run before any distance. And then on the eve of my birthday in May, I decided I was going to run a half marathon distance. Yeah, so I did that and I felt really good. It was amazing.
At 50.
Yeah, so yeah, 49, a few hours less than 50, but yeah, 50 basically. Yeah, so to have shifted my body to a point where I could get it to do that, and to have lost the weight, I probably lost 17, 18 kilos over that period of time as well, just from movement and not drinking.
And mental clarity of accepting yourself as you are. That's a big part of it,
Absolutely.
The moment that you accept yourself and who you are, you allow yourself to be who you want to be, and everything is more simple, It's like you took the dam between your brain and your soul and reality, and you just let it go, and things can flow now. Yeah.
And I think as you were saying that, what connected with me there was that's what makes that change sustainable. I think before that, I'd had summers where I'd run, and I'd lost a bit of weight, but because I didn't have the mental clarity and self-acceptance that kind of I knew where I was going, I'd kind of fall back into the old ways. Whereas in that instance, I knew where I wanted to go, and I just knew that I didn't want to live the way I had. And that wasn't just in terms of my sexuality, but it was in the entire complexity of my life. I wanted to have meaningful relationships with people. I wanted to live authentically and honestly and openly. I wanted to be real with people and be accepted by them, or allow them to accept me. And I wanted to fall in love with my body because I knew, did I know it or did I feel it? That if I didn't love this body, it's all good. If I didn't love this body, then
who can?
How the hell is anyone else going to be able to love it?
That's the point. Because we also the entire goals of us is only to make others accept us, to be there for others to see us. But the moment you accept yourself and you allow yourself to just be yourself, others can actually see who you are. And until you will love yourself and until you will accept yourself, no one will be able even to get into you, because you can go far, as I see it, you can go far down somebody else's soul just as much as you went through yourself. And until you know enough about yourself, you will never know enough about others. So the first goal is to actually accept yourself, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's transformational. And again, it's one of those things that it's easy to say, but to really live that and be courageous and put both feet out the door and test the ground outside.
You gotta be vulnerable.
Yeah,
you gotta be vulnerable. You gotta get hurt.
You've got to be prepared to.
Yeah. You're gonna get some hits.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Half marathon.
Yeah, so I did the half marathon distance and thought, that's all right. I can. Signed up by the September. I think I ran my first marathon, and then every year after that except since moving here, I've run a marathon at least. I think one year I did 2, which is just, it's crazy. It's mental.
Running a marathon, bro.
It felt so good.
Yeah.
It just felt, the physical, the physicality of it, the sense of pain and.
That's a mental war, isn't it?
It is.
That's a
and
mental war, you know.
Yeah.
You see yourself running another kilometer and another
Yeah.
kilometer and
Yeah.
and it doesn't get, you know, like the road is pretty much endless now, you know.
feels
I've been
like it.
running for like how long? Like 3 hours, 4 hours, and like where am I going? You
Yeah.
know, like as I see it, it's crazy, you know, like that.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine myself, like I can imagine it, you know, but that must be like, how do you feel like after 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, like?
Yeah, so 10's all right, and then 20, you know, you're starting to feel it a little bit. The hardest, because it's 41 and a half Ks for a marathon. So by the time, you know, I think the sort of 30K to 37 and a half K, it's just a hard slog, and that's where the battle, for me, that's where the battle lies. You know, I just, you know, you always learn every time you do it, but that was where you know, when I started doing them multiple times, I knew that was where the fight started. That was where the battle began. You know, the Ks before that was just a warm up. That was just getting in the rhythm. But if I was gonna get that finished, then I needed to be fighting through every kilometer in those, you know, 30 to 35K.
Just being present.
Yep. And just, being mindful of what's happening around you. And one of the tricks or tips I kind of learned, because I listened to a lot of running podcasts and stuff at that time, was, you know, I think I used to try and pretend that things didn't hurt, or that it was, you know, it was okay, it was all right, you just kept on going. But one of the you know, pros said, actually, it's okay to just call it and say, yeah, this fucking hurts. You know, my foot is sore. It is hurting.
No denying it.
That's it. You know, it's not going to change.
Yeah.
So you might as well just keep going. So yeah, acknowledge that the pain's there, but, you know, don't dwell on it. Just keep moving, because that's all you can do. You know, yeah, you can give up, but, you know, you don't have to. You can keep going. And
How many of those you've done by now?
so I think I've done 5. So 5 marathons, and I'm 54 now. So yeah. So
You look great, bro.
thank you. Yeah. And again, you know, like that is it's a transformation, not just in terms of my physicality, but in terms of the way that I see myself, you know.
That, people, is how accepting yourself looks. Okay? At 54. I'm just saying.
It's so good, you know, and to live, you know, to allow myself to live the life that I want to live, and not be constrained by constructs that are external and that have no validity, you know. And I mean, Phangan is certainly part of that story as well. My goodness, you know.
When did you get here?
So we've lived here for 2 years now. Just over 2 years. So, so just part of that story. So post COVID, I dated a few guys, and there was one guy that I
As a hot chunk of a human being. Huh?
I was working on it.
I was working on it.
I was still, still not where I am today. But yeah, there was this one guy that I really liked, but it didn't work out. But one of the gifts he gave me was talking about it's an outdoors network. So that's run as by gays, basically. So it's called Outdoor Lads. And so it was kind of set up, I think, I don't know, a while ago, as a bit of a counter to the whole kind of stereotypical gay club culture, sexual abuse, kind of dysfunctional relationships kind of vibe.
Yeah.
That
Sounds safe.
which is a bit, it seems to be a bit of a trap for a lot of us. I missed out on all of that fun.
Oh no.
So a bunch of guys that happened to be gay but liked hiking and climbing and cycling and, you know, canoeing and all that kind of stuff said, why don't we just, you know, organise trips where people can just go and enjoy being outside and enjoy nature. And so this guy suggested that it might be something I'd be interested in. He said he'd never done it, but he thought it might be something I'd be interested in.
Why not?
Yeah. Well, I could think of lots of reasons why not at that point, because I was still carrying all of this internalized homophobia, and I was thinking, oh, me and a bunch of gays,
All those gay
on a
guys.
camping trip. What am I going to have in common with them? That's ridiculous. But anyway, I'd probably had one or too many glasses of wine one night, and I found myself signing up to this camping trip, and nearly pulled out multiple times and got lost going there. And by the time I got there, I was very flustered, didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
I was like, got out of the car, walked across the field, and I saw this guy sitting, down, and he had this big dog, a grey Great Dane. So he kind of stood out from the crowd a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought, he's a pretty handsome guy, but said g'day and wandered on and whatnot. And anyway, spent the weekend, on this camping trip, and the guy Chris was, he had some interesting stories to tell. He'd lived in the Amazon for 15 years in Patagonia, and had this big dog which was kind of cute, and he a great set of legs on him as well. And so I just found myself every time we sat down to eat a meal or stop for a break or something, we'd end up sitting together.
Yeah, you were drawn.
Well, he was drawn. I was completely oblivious to what was going on because, like I said, I'd never dated him. I'd never had a relationship. I had no idea what was going on, and I'd kind of got to a point by that stage after the whole Grindr experience of thinking, look, I'm just going to go on this trip. If I can make some friends, that would be a good starting point. That was my goal. So
exactly.
I like to tell a story. I like to hear a story. I'm a relatively confident guy. So I was just sort of, wandering along, meeting, chatting with different people as we walked because, hiking trips are good for that. You can, you don't have to sit and chat. But like I said, every time we stopped for a break, I found this guy sitting next to me. And like I said, he had interesting stories to tell. He was working really hard to get my attention, and it worked. And we fell in love, and we ended up moving to Copenhagen because he was offered work here. So, so that's how we ended up here 2 years ago, and it's been a fun journey.
How was the feeling about entering your first relationship as a 50? You were 52.
Yeah, so just turned so 51, 52.
And suddenly your heart is actually pounding, You're accepting that you accepted who you are.
Yeah.
You accepted what you want, and now reality presents you with here. That's what you wanted, no? And how do you feel now about it?
It's a good reflection because I remember I had some really beautiful friends in the village that I lived in, and they'd been. Once I'd actually, after COVID, it was able to come out to a few people. They were so supportive, and I remember sitting with Laura and saying, I think I've found what I've been looking for, because I used to sit with her and play, because I'd see couples walking down the beach holding hands, and I'd be like, oh, why is it ever me?
Sad music in the background.
Yeah. Oh, the drama.
Yeah.
And so I'd go and cry on Laura's shoulder, and she'd say, you'll be okay. And then, Chris came along, and then it was like, oh no, what do I do now? This thing that I've been desperately searching for and wanting. And I remember, I remember saying to her, I feel like I'm standing on the edge of the deep end of a swimming pool, and I've got a choice here. I can either jump in and just go with it and think, well, I can swim, so it's going to be okay, or I can just slink off into
I'm skedaddling out of it,
back into the change rooms and head home. And
you chose not to.
No, jumped in. And jumped in big time. So we'd been going out 7 months. We'd decided we hadn't lived together. You know, I'd never lived with anyone else. I'd never been in a relationship with anyone else. And so moving to Copenhagen was the first time that I'd lived in, well, not the first time I lived in another country, but, you know, moved to another country, new job, moving in, you know, newish relationship, moving into a house together with that person.
So you're basically experiencing your 20s right now.
Exactly.
That's beautiful, man. I'm so happy for you.
And here on Copenhagen,
I'm so happy for you.
It's so good. It's just brilliant. It couldn't have been a better place. It's
it was like you were reborn. You were completely like there's the start of it. Like you took 50 years of your time to understand yourself. And the moment you truly understood yourself, reality just said, now take everything.
Yeah.
Which is, that's so beautiful that life gets this way, you know. The moment, not a day before or after, that you know what you really want from yourself, and your, I don't know how to call it, like frequency, something in yourself, your heart is speaking the language of the universe. Suddenly, oh, now I can speak because I understand what I'm saying. That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And how the island been treating you?
Say again?
How the island has been treating you so far?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's a beautiful place to start a new life. It's the kind of thing that movies are made of. You know, it is. I pinch myself and I think, how did this happen? And then I remind myself that happened because of all the stuff we've talked about, you know, because
you were real.
Yeah, I was courageous. I was brave.
You were ready to be vulnerable. You were ready to sacrifice all yourself. You know, some people are trying to acquire new abilities and qualities while not giving up on the old habits and the things they are used to do. But it cannot work like that. You know, you gotta give some parts of your personality away to get something new. You have only a certain capacity of ability to have things inside of you. You gotta let go to acquire new.
It's such a good reflection, because, you know, I thought I had a great life. You know, I had more money than I knew what to do with. I could choose anything I wanted to do. I could go and do it. I didn't have to negotiate. I didn't have to ask. I could, you know, I had an amazing life, but I wasn't happy, and I didn't, and I wasn't in love. And I think, I don't know, I really believe that there's something foundational to the human condition that we need to love and be loved. You know, it's at the core of our being. It's what makes us different to the other mammals that are part of our
it's
our
the source.
Gang.
It's the void between atoms. It's love, you know, the unconditional love, but not love that we say, oh, I love her, I love him, and the understanding that life itself is beautiful, and the value you have towards yourself and others is not coming from productivity, efficiency, how much you have, what you're doing, just from the fact that you are part of this experiment, this experience. You know, I believe that this whole world would not exist without your point of view, because you are looking at reality, you know. I exist here because you are able to look at me, so I exist. You know, we are all little parts of what it's like being a human, you know. And the moment you truly understand that without each other, nothing has no value, you know, nothing has no meanings. So this whole running after the ego, you know, after the productivity, after the efficiency, after money, you can have everything, but if your heart is empty, what does it even? It has no value.
Absolutely, Absolutely.
You know, and love is only real when shared. You know, you cannot keep the love for it. Love is probably one of the only things in reality that you can give away, and it will only multiply.
Yeah.
You cannot get empty of love if you're pushing it out. You know, like that. That's why it's so beautiful. You know, that the true things in life will always find themselves. You know, just being there. You will not need to work hard for anything that is pure in this reality.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to see people like you, you know, going around, you know, discovering themselves, just being able to just be, you know, without too many limitations, without too many, I don't even know how to say it anymore, you know, it's just fucking beautiful.
Yeah. And Copenhagen's, you know, it's been a significant part of that process, because it is a place where, I mean, Thai culture is super accepting anyway. And, you know, we've got, you know, a beautiful collection of great Thai friends. And then, you know, the expat, the Phangan community here, you know, there is just a real sense of acceptance, you know, and it is different, you know, it is a different place. And I know, you know, there's lots of people that have theories about, you know, the core of the island and what it's made of and how that impact, you know, all of that.
I've heard this for a couple of times now.
Which you know, it's not my thing, but what I do believe is that there's an attraction here that brings people to this space to be who they need to be and who they want to be.
100%. And I know that of myself. You know, I came here first time, 22-year-old boy that doesn't know anything about life, doesn't know anything about himself, afraid to think, afraid to say what he thinks. And 7 years later, you know, like I've became who I don't know if I wanted to be who I am, but I know that was what I was meant to be.
Yeah.
You know, just being able to just experience.
Yeah.
You know, we came from dust. We are going to go back to big dust.
Yep.
You know, just the universe experiencing itself like subjectively.
Yeah.
You know, and then the moment you dedicate your life, especially here where it's so easy to just be able to be in the right mental place to just create and help and be there for others, and like it's just we live at the place, the core place that good things can come out of.
Yeah.
You know, and I would say that anyone needs to come here for a month or two at least, just get inside yourselves. Let yourself go.
Yeah.
And when you came to the island, what did you start doing?
So, we came because of Chris's work. So he's a horticulturalist by training, and he, like I said, he'd lived and worked in the Amazon and Patagonia for 15 years, and he has expertise in propagating the medicine plants that are pretty significant to people on the island and to different cultures around the world. So
sounds like I need him here also.
he has got a really interesting story to tell. My goodness. So we came because there were some people on the island that had some land and wanted some help to nurture that land and to care for it, and that's where Chris's expertise is in nurturing tropical landscapes and ecology and growing those medicine plants, propagating them. So so that was why we came, and then I was just going to come along for the ride, really.
Be a housewife.
Be a handsome house husband. You know,
go to the gym in the morning, buy nice clothes, have a good skin therapy routine.
Funnily enough, and that was what Chris wanted, which was gorgeous, but my ego still at that point was like, no, I need to be my own man.
Manly man.
Yeah. I'm not gonna have. Yeah. Anyway, so I picked up a teaching job on the island. So I've been working for the 2 years prior to this at the international school here, which is a gorgeous school. It's a great community, and it's been a real privilege to be a part of that community. Like I still, as much as I've found schools difficult places to work, because it's hard work being a teacher. It's not an easy gig. I know the holidays are good. I get that, but it's draining. You know, it's really exhausting.
That's a lot of energy out.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But what I really love about schools is that community of inquiry, and, you know, people coming together, whatever their age, to discover more about the world and themselves and their place in it. And so, from a professional background, you know, my expertise and my professional passion has been about creating schools as amazing places for young people to be, and to be who they have been created to be, and to discover who they want to be. I've never been a big advocate for a defined curriculum and curriculum delivery. It's not my expertise. It's not something I'm passionate about. Yeah. But pastoral care, student wellbeing, you know, discovery of self, that kind of stuff. I think schools have a really important role to play in,
if done right.
Absolutely, yeah.
If done right.
And I've been fortunate, you know, to have been in positions where I've been able to lead communities into a practice of doing that right. Those kinds of opportunities aren't available on the island yet. So I did 2 years as a classroom teacher here, and I loved it, and I love the kids, and I love the community, but I took the opportunity to finish up at the end of last academic year and become that house husband.
Yes. You deserve it. You deserve it to have some fun, you know. In Israel, we have, when you finish like the army, you go to an after army trip, you know, you go to do like 6 months in India or in South America. You never had something like that. You deserve a vacation.
Yep.
You deserve to be a house husband and just take care of your skin or something.
Yeah. And enjoy, you know, some of the great fun that's available here. You know, the music, the sunsets, the community, the connections with people that come from sharing a space and having time to be available and to not be rushing off to your next appointment or to a job or whatever that might be. Like I said, I've just loved the connections that we've made here, both with, you know, our Thai friends and with the Phangan community. It's been super, super special. And like you say, you know, it's a great community to be a part of. So I think anyone who has an interest in wanting to learn more about themselves, should come here. There's plenty of places in the world you could do that, but, you know, this is our patch, and we think it's a good place. So. Yeah,
I ain't going nowhere. I want to go back to the pin we put. I want to know how was I never forgot about that.
Good question.
Yeah.
The
talk with your parents.
Yeah. So
how did that go?
So I had, rightly or wrongly, I decided that, because I was kind of living these two lives, because I was the gay, you know, hot daddy in the UK, and back in Australia I was this guy that, you know, used to look like this but had kind of changed a bit, but, you know, he just liked running all of a sudden, and so but there was no sort of sharing of, you know, my sexuality there in that space. So I kind of decided that unless I was in a relationship with someone, that would be the only reason why I think anyone would want to know. I look back now and I think, well, I don't know that I would agree with that, but that was what I was thought at the time. So when I fell in love with Chris, and we've been going out for a while, Chris was really helpful in supporting me to manage that process well. And, you know, he kind of reflected to me that I had had this time to accept who I was, and to process that and to be comfortable with that. And so if I was going to allow my family to respond to that as best as they possibly could, it was incumbent on me to allow them the time and space to do that as well, and not just expect that I could burst out of the closet.
Surprise!
And they would go, oh, great, yeah. So we kind of went through a process of conversation where, you know, I would just, every time I shared with them about what was happening in my life, although I wasn't talking necessarily about Chris, but I would just be talking about how happy I was, how fulfilling life had become because of the choices that I was able to make, and because of how, the shift in my thinking about myself. And so kind of, working, massaging the around the edges, I suppose. So tested the waters with my brothers and sisters-in-law first, and they were great. They were so supportive and really good. And then it kind of just came out with mum and dad. I used to chat with them once a week on the Zoom thing, and I remember it was between a couple of tuition sessions that I had. I just happened to ring them, and it kind of just came out naturally in the conversation that I'd met this guy, and that was why I was spending all this time in Brighton, and that I'd never been happier. And what threw me was that my dad, who, like I said, I'd heard him say just horrible things, was like, yeah, good on you. Yeah, good on you. You don't want to end up being a miserable bastard like I am at the age of 75. So yeah, good for you. And kind of walked off, out of screenshot.
And you're like, that's it? That's it? I thought you were gonna run after me with a torch or something.
Yeah, mum struggled, which I wasn't expecting, but I think that's her journey to take, and she's been gracious. Well, we've both been able to be gracious with each other, and I was able to take Chris home to Australia for Christmas the year before last, and that family was just beautiful. They just accepted him as another son and part of the family, and it was really, really special. It was gorgeous, and being able to show him off to my mates, and after all of that, like I was saying about that fear of rejection, there was only one set of friends, they were a couple, that had anything negative to say, and basically walked away. All the rest of my friends have just been so supportive and so loving and so celebratory, and they just adore Chris, and I think that's a testament to the friends I've chosen, but it's also a testament to to them, and it's a lesson for me that, again, like I said, that if people are given a chance, they're usually going to make good choices.
And listen, 2 people from all your friends group, that's a good statistic. As I see it, it's like you say, it's their choice. It's their life to live, and like at the end of the day, what we think is mostly on us. Even if we're trying to look at others, we don't really look at them. We look at ourselves through them, And I'm so glad to hear the story, because you don't hear a lot of people that discover themselves at 50, and you don't hear about a lot of people that like struggle for so many years, and then suddenly the heart is calm,
Yeah.
You found yourself.
Yeah.
You know who you are. What's the future holds.
So I'm loving the gym. I mean, it's not the be all and end all, but again, for me, it's about community and connectedness. So it's where I go in the morning because I like being with the people that are there. I enjoy their company.
That's fun.
I enjoy
That's a
the
fun
connection.
place to be at 7:30 a.m.
I enjoy the laugh. I enjoy the banter. It's it's gorgeous, and I love the physicality of it, and I've got a great training partner at the moment.
The Biscuit Boys.
The Biscuit Boys, and it's just hilarious because he is like he's the henchest.
And I've seen him the last few days that you weren't there. He was kind of sad about it. He needed you there.
Well, you could not pick 2 people more different, and I love
That's the beauty of it.
He's so gorgeous in his homophobia, and he tries to be to make me uncomfortable, and he just gets it back every time, and it just makes me laugh. It's so good. But again, it's a part of that self-acceptance and being accepted, that I can train with this big hulking straight London bloke, and we can make
Just be.
make
just lift
gay
heavy shit
jokes
together.
and lift stuff up and put it down again. And yeah, so I love the gym, and it's been great again to, you know, with my training partners' help, you know, to push myself into, you know, personal bests and you know, lifting what for me is really heavy stuff. You know, it's good, and because for me that's been a really important part, as much as the mental part of that process of change has been connecting with my body and discovering what it's capable
So important.
of. Yeah,
So important.
and just being fascinated by this collection
The
of
ability,
cells,
you know, that breaking those glasses ceilings.
Yeah.
Another one, and now I can do a pull-up, and now I can do it better, and now I can lift, like, how much? 105, 120, 150, like... You guys are insane. You know, we're watching you for a hour, and I'm like, these guys.
It is insane.
Especially at 54, you know.
Yeah,
like,
I know. It's great.
Having the type of shape at 54 is admirable.
Yeah.
That shows some discipline. That shows what's going on inside, you know.
Yeah.
I believe that the physicality, you know, like how your physics look, is a straight away like configuration of what's going on inside of you, and your heart must be calm, and your soul must be, you know, you actually breathe, and I want to thank you for this. I had so much fun here.
Brilliant.
And I can't wait for us to just continue living here, and let's see what future holds. Huh, Tony?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
No worries, mate. It's been good to chat.
Join the journey, stay for a while.